Get off my land before I call the sheriff. Victoria Ashford's scream echoed across the desert like a rattlesnake's warning. She stood 3 feet from my gate, one manicured hand gripping the iron bars, the other jabbing a finger at my chest hard enough I felt the pressure through the air. Behind her, 20 residents in matching Desert Vista HOA polo shirts, phones raised, red recording lights blinking like a field of angry fireflies. Behind me, 15 acres of Arizona scrubland that had belonged to my family since 1959, a deed older than most marriages in this county, and a grandfather's dying wish that I'd sworn to protect. "This is public access!" Victoria shrieked. She wore a crimson blazer over black silk, red heels sinking into gravel they had no business walking on, wine-colored hair whipping in the wind. "You're endangering lives by blocking emergency vehicles." I took one step forward. She flinched. "Ma'am," I said, voice low and steady as morning coffee, "you're trespassing. And if you don't step back from my gate in the next 10 seconds, I'm calling the Maricopa County Sheriff. I am the AOA president." She screamed. "And I said, pulling out my phone, "own every inch of dirt you're standing on." The crowd gasped. Phones tilted for better angles. One man shouted, "He's threatening her." Another, "Someone get this on Facebook." Victoria's face went from tan to crimson to match her blazer. That's when Sheriff Tom Rivas's cruiser crested the ridge, dust trailing behind like the hand of God arriving late to the party. He stepped out slowly, sunglasses reflecting the Arizona sun, and said the 6 words that changed everything. "Ma'am, you got a warrant for that?" She didn't. Welcome to Arizona, 2024, where HOA presidents learn the hard way that a clipboard doesn't beat a deed, a threat doesn't beat the law, and a crowd with cameras doesn't beat a man who knows exactly where his property line ends. My name is Marcus Brennan. I'm 58 years old, 3rd-generation Arizonan, and the last person standing between my grandfather's legacy and a woman who thinks community standards mean she owns the world. This is the story of how I almost lost everything, and how I took it all back. Let me back up 6 months. When my grandfather, Samuel Brennan, died in March 2024, he left me one thing: 15 acres of desert scrubland 40 miles east of Phoenix, just past Apache Junction, where the Superstition Mountains rise like jagged teeth against an endless sky. The land wasn't fancy, wasn't green, wasn't Instagram pretty. It was rocks, saguaro cacti, creosote bushes, and a single-wide trailer Samuel had lived in for 40 years, surrounded by a workshop, 2 sheds, and enough rusted farm equipment to start a museum of American stubbornness. But it was mine, legally, completely. With a deed recorded in 1959 when Samuel bought it for $800 cash from a prospector who thought desert without water was worthless, Samuel knew better. He saw space, freedom, the kind of place where a man could breathe without someone telling him the proper shade of beige for his mailbox. He raised my father here, taught him to weld, hunt, fix engines with wire, and prayer. When Dad died in a construction accident in 1998, Samuel raised me the same way, taught me that land isn't just property, it's legacy, responsibility. A promise you make to the people who came before and the ones who'll come after. "Boy," he'd say, leaning against the porch rail with a beer sweating in his hand, "you don't just own land, you defend it, from the government, from developers, from people who think money makes them kings." He died in that same spot. Heart attack. Quick and clean. His last words, according to the paramedic, "Tell Marcus." Don't let him take it. I buried him on a hill overlooking the property, marked with a simple stone, Samuel Brennan, 1944 to 2024. He stood his ground, and I swore on that grave I'd do the same. For 3 months, I lived peacefully, fixed the trailer's roof, rewired the workshop, planted ocotillo along the south fence line because Samuel always said a fence should look like it belongs to the desert, not a subdivision. Mornings, I'd sit on the porch with coffee, watching roadrunners chase lizards while the sun painted the superstitions orange and gold. No neighbors, no noise. No HOA newsletters about approved cacti heights. Just quiet, the kind of quiet that heals a man. Then Desert Vista Estates showed up. It started with survey flags, little orange markers sprouting across the road like plastic weeds. Then came bulldozers, concrete trucks, framing crews working 12-hour shifts. Within 4 months, a gated community materialized out of nowhere. 200 identical beige stucco houses, all behind white walls with a massive sign reading Desert Vista Estates, a planned community. They sold fast. Retirees from California and Washington fleeing wildfires and taxes. Young families priced out of Phoenix. All promised luxury desert living with modern amenities. What they weren't told, the back half of Desert Vista bordered rough terrain washes, boulders, steep grades, no easy access for garbage trucks, fire engines, or ambulances. The only logical route was my South Road, a quarter-mile gravel path Samuel carved in 1967 with a rented grader and a mule named Chester who hated mornings. That road connected my property to County Road 347. Private, deeded, mine, and Desert Vista wanted it. The first approach came in June. A man in a polo shirt and khakis appeared at my gate with a clipboard and a smile so bright it should have come with a dimmer switch. Mr. Brennan, I'm Derek Cole, Community Liaison for Desert Vista HOA. We'd like to discuss temporary access through your southern road for construction vehicles. I looked at him, then at the road behind me, then back at him. That's private property. We understand, and we're prepared to compensate you generously. Not interested. His smile flickered. Sir, this would benefit the entire community. Emergency services, deliveries, still not interested. Mr. Brennan, surely you understand. I stepped closer. Not threatening, just clear. I understand that you're standing on my land without permission. And if you're still here in 30 seconds, I'm calling the sheriff for trespassing. He left, but he'd be back. They always come back. 3 days later, I found HOA pamphlets stuffed in my gate hinges, mailbox, even wedged under my truck's windshield wiper. Bold headlines: Property owner blocks community access. Emergency vehicles at risk. One man's selfishness endangers 200 families. They'd even created a website. freetheroad.com, photos of my gate, satellite images of the blocked access route. A petition with 150 signatures demanding I do the right thing. I didn't get angry. I got tactical. I installed 6 4K security cameras, thermal, night vision, motion activated, upgraded my gate lock from steel to military-grade titanium, added solar-powered floodlights triggered by anything larger than a coyote, and I called a lawyer. Patricia Reyes, a property rights attorney who'd spent 20 years fighting eminent domain cases across the Southwest. Marcus, she said after reviewing my deed, you're ironclad. This land is yours. The HOA has zero legal claim to access. So why are they pushing? Because they lied to their buyers, promised amenities they couldn't deliver. Now they're desperate. How desperate? She smiled grimly. Desperate enough to break the law. Document everything. I did, and 2 weeks later, they gave me plenty to document. At 2:47 a.m. on a Tuesday in July, my phone buzzed Motion Alert, Southgate. I pulled on boots, grabbed my jacket, and stepped into the desert night. 2 figures in black moving along my fence line. One carried a flashlight, the other, a battery-powered angle grinder. They reached the gate. Sparks exploded as the grinder bit into my lock, showering orange and white like a 4th of July show for criminals. I didn't yell, didn't rush out. I filmed everything from behind the workshop. Clear angles, time-stamped, audio recording their conversation. Karen said this lock's the only thing stopping us. Just cut it. She said we're covered. Karen. That name would become very important very soon. I waited until they'd incriminated themselves thoroughly, then called 911. Sheriff Tom Rivas arrived 8 minutes later with 2 deputies. The intruders were still grinding when the floodlights hit. "Hands up! Step away from the gate." Grinder guy dropped the tool like it burned him. His partner tried to run, made it 10 feet before face planting into a cholla cactus. The screams were satisfying. Tom cuffed them both while I approached. "Marcus," Tom said, shaking his head. "You all right?" "Fine." Got it all on camera. One of the intruders, still on his knees, hands zip-tied, started babbling. Wait, this is a misunderstanding. Karen said it was authorized." She said, "We had immunity," she promised. "Dude," his partner hissed. "Shut up." Tom's eyebrow rose. "Karen? Karen Sterling, HOA president. She hired us. Said the county approved emergency access. Said she'd handle the paperwork." "There is no paperwork," Tom said flatly. "This is breaking and entering. Destruction of private property. Conspiracy to commit trespass." The man's face went white. Tom looked at me. "You're pressing charges?" "Every single one." By sunrise, both men were in county lockup. By noon, the investigation had expanded, because when deputies searched their truck, they found something interesting. A forged emergency access authorization with fake county seals, a memo signed Desert Vista Community Enforcement, and most damning, a payment receipt for $5,000, authorized by Victoria Ashford. Not Karen Sterling, Victoria Ashford. President, Desert Vista HOA. The woman who was about to make my life hell. The morning after the break-in, I expected silence, maybe an apology. At minimum, some distance while the HOA figured out how badly they'd screwed up. Instead, I got war. At 7 a.m., I stepped outside to find my property line transformed into a protest camp. 20 people. Matching polo shirts. Homemade signs. Share the road. Emergency access saves. Lives. Don't be selfish, Brennan. One man shouldn't control 200 families. One woman had glitter on her poster. Glitter. At 7 a.m., I grabbed a lawn chair, a beer, yes, at 7 a.m., don't judge, and a small whiteboard, sat down, took a sip, wrote on the board in big red letters, 7.5, held it up. The crowd went silent. One man shouted, "What the hell is that supposed to mean?" "Your synchronization is terrible," I called back. "If you're going to protest, at least march in rhythm." Half the crowd looked offended. The other half looked confused. I took another sip. "Come on, folks. Show me some effort." Then I noticed her. Victoria Ashford stood at the front of the crowd like a general surveying troops. She was late 40s, hair styled into that aggressive, "I want to speak to your manager" cut, wearing designer sunglasses despite the fact the sun was barely up. And she was furious. "Mr. Brennan," she yelled, voice sharp enough to cut glass. "You've left us no choice. We're here to demand access." "Demand all you want," I said calmly. "You're still trespassing on county easement. This is public land." "No, ma'am. That's county road." I pointed behind me. "Everything past my gate is mine." She stepped closer, heels clicking on gravel. "You're endangering lives." "What if there's a fire? What if someone has a heart attack? Then they call 911 like everyone else. Ambulances know where the front entrance is. The front entrance adds 12 minutes. Then maybe you should have built better roads." Her face went red. That's when things got interesting. A man in his 40s, polo shirt, cargo shorts, that aggressive, "I'm about to do something stupid" energy pushed through the crowd. "You're the land hog, huh?" he shouted. "The guy putting families at risk?" I stayed seated, calm, camera on my hat, already recording. "Sir, you need to step back from the gate." Instead, he stepped closer, got right up to the fence line. "You think you're tough? Hiding behind your cameras and lawyers?" I stood, slowly, hands visible, non-threatening. "I think I'm a property owner, and I think you're about to make a very bad decision." He threw a dramatic swing, fingertips barely grazing my shoulder. Then he dropped to the ground like I'd shot him, clutched his face, started screaming. "He hit me! He assaulted me. Call the police. Phones came out instantly. People shouted. Someone screamed, "Oh my God, did you see that?" I just pointed to the blinking red light on my hat. "GoPro?" I said calmly. "Records everything." The man kept rolling around in the dirt, holding his face even though there wasn't a mark on him. 20 minutes later, Sheriff Tom rolled up, looked at the man on the ground, looked at the crowd, looked at me. "Marcus, what happened?" Before I could answer, the victim scrambled up. "He attacked me. I want to press charges," Tom sighed. "You got footage, Marcus?" I unclipped the GoPro, handed it over. Tom watched, replayed it, watched again in slow motion. Then he looked at the actor. "Sir, turn around." "What?" "Turn around. You're under arrest for filing a false police report." The crowd erupted. Gasps, whispers. Several people backed away fast. As Tom cuffed him, the man sputtered, "She paid me! Victoria said it was legal! She said, dude!" Someone hissed, "Stop talking!" But it was too late. Tom looked at Victoria. She'd gone pale. "Ma'am, did you pay this man to stage an assault?" I would never." Tom held up a hand. "Save it for the statement. You'll be hearing from the DA's office." As the patrol car drove off with the fake victim, the crowd melted away like snow in July. Victoria stood alone, clutching her clipboard like it might save her. She locked eyes with me. "This isn't over," she whispered. "I know," I said, and I meant it. Because 2 days later, the real attack began. The one that almost destroyed me. The smear campaign started small. A Facebook post in the Desert Vista community group. Neighbor refuses emergency access, puts lives at risk. Time to take action? Then a next door thread. Elderly woman delayed ambulance because of blocked road. Landowner refuses to cooperate. Neither story was true. But truth doesn't matter when it's wrapped in outrage. Within 48 hours, I was the villain of 3 online groups, 2 local news segments, and a change.org petition with 2,400 signatures demanding the county seize my road through eminent domain. My phone started ringing. Reporters, angry residents, even a few death threats. One voicemail. "You're gonna get someone killed, you selfish bastard." I stopped answering. But it got worse. One morning, I walked outside to find my gate spray painted, blood on your hands, my truck keyed from bumper to bumper, my mailbox smashed with a baseball bat, and my workshop broken into, tools stolen, murderer spray painted across the wall. I filed police reports. Tom came out, took photos, promised to investigate. But I could see it in his eyes. This was getting out of control. "Marcus," he said quietly, "maybe you should consider." "No, just hear me out. If you sold an easement..." "Tom, my grandfather built that road with his own hands. Victoria Ashford doesn't get to take it because she made promises she couldn't keep." He nodded. Didn't push. Just said, "Be careful. I was trying to be." But Victoria wasn't done. The next attack came from a direction I didn't expect. The county. A code enforcement officer showed up with a clipboard and a frown. "Mr. Brennan, we've received complaints about unpermitted structures on your property." "What structures?" "The workshop, the storage sheds, the fence modifications." I blinked. "Those have been here for 40 years. Not according to county records. If you can't provide building permits, we'll have to issue violations." "You're joking." "Fines start at $500 per day per structure." I called Patricia immediately. "They're digging," she said, "looking for any angle to force you into compliance." "Can they do that?" "They can try. But Marcus, this is expensive. Every fight costs money, and the HOA has deep pockets." "How deep?" "Deeper than yours." That night, I sat on the porch and did the math. Legal fees, $15,000 so far. Property damage, $8,000. Code violation fines if I lost, $3,000 plus per week. My savings, $47,000. If this dragged on for 6 months, I'd be broke, and Victoria knew it. 2 weeks later, things got worse. A journalist from Phoenix showed up young, hungry, looking for a viral story. "Mr. Brennan, residents say you're blocking emergency services. Is that true? They have a front entrance, but emergency response times are 12 minutes slower. That's a planning problem, not my problem." "So, you don't care if someone dies?" I stared at her. "You're twisting my words. I'm asking a simple question." The interview aired that night. "Landowners' greed endangers desert community." They edited it to make me look cold, selfish, dangerous, used the spray-painted gate as B-roll. Interviewed Victoria, who cried on camera about fearing for her community. My phone exploded. Hundreds of messages. "You're disgusting. Hope you die alone. Karma's coming for you." I stopped going to town. Stopped answering the door. Even Tom looked at me differently when he came by for wellness checks. "Marcus, you okay?" "No. You need to know there's a recall petition. Some residents want the county to condemn your property for public use." My stomach dropped. "Can they do that? Eminent domain? Theoretically, if they can prove public necessity." "This is a land grab, Tom." "I know, but the county's under pressure." "And Marcus," he hesitated. "Victoria's connected. Her husband's a real estate developer. She's got lawyers, money, influence. What are you saying?" "I'm saying you might lose." That night, I stood at my grandfather's grave, stared at the stone. "Samuel Brennan." He stood his ground. "I'm trying, old man," I whispered, "but I don't know if I can win this." The wind carried dust across the desert. For the first time since this started, I felt something I hadn't felt before. Fear. Not of Victoria, not of the HOA. Fear that maybe Tom was right. Maybe I was going to lose. And then, just when I thought it couldn't get worse, help arrived from the last person I expected. His name was Daniel Ortiz. I found him standing at my gate one evening, late 30s, button-down shirt, laptop bag, eyes that looked like they hadn't slept in a week. "Mr. Brennan," he said quietly, "can we talk? Who are you?" "Daniel Ortiz, treasurer of Desert Vista HOA." He swallowed hard. "And I need your help." I almost laughed. "You need my help?" "Please, just 5 minutes." Against my better judgment, I opened the gate. We sat on the porch. He wouldn't look at me. "I didn't come as a board member," he said finally. "I came as a homeowner, and a father, and someone who can't sleep anymore because of what's happening." "What is happening?" He pulled out a USB drive. "Victoria's been embezzling from the HOA. Over $400,000. The number hung in the air like a grenade. The break-in?" Daniel continued. "The staged assault, the smear campaign, all paid for with community funds. And when I questioned it, she told me she'd blame me. Said treasurers always take the fall. Why are you telling me this?" "Because you're the only one who can stop her." He handed me the drive. "It's all here. Bank records, emails, payment receipts, authorization codes she forged using my credentials. Why not go to the police? I tried. They said it's a civil matter. HOA fraud cases take years." His voice cracked. "I have 2 kids, Mr. Brennan. If she destroys me, I lose everything. My house, my reputation, my family." I looked at the USB drive, then at Daniel. "If I use this, she'll know it came from you." "I know." He stood. "But I'd rather face her than face myself in the mirror knowing I did nothing." After he left, I plugged in the drive, spent 4 hours reading, and what I found was worse than embezzlement. It was a blueprint for destroying me. Email, Victoria to Derek, Community Liaison. Brennan won't negotiate. Time to make him. Target his reputation, his finances, and his mental health. Make him so toxic that even his lawyer quits. Payment receipt, $8,500. Media consultant, negative coverage campaign. Meeting notes. HOA board. If legal pressure fails, we'll pursue eminent domain through county connections. Developer contacts will expedite approval. They planned everything. The vandalism, the fake assault, the news smear, even the code violations. Victoria's husband had a contact in county enforcement. This wasn't a property dispute, it was a conspiracy. And I finally had proof. The next morning, I called Patricia. "We've got her," I said. "What do you have?" "Everything." 2 weeks later, we were in Maricopa County Superior Court. Desert Vista HOA versus Marcus Brennan. Petition for emergency access easement. The courtroom was packed. Residents, reporters, even a TV crew. Victoria sat at the plaintiff's table in a navy suit, hair perfect, expression confident. She thought she'd already won. The HOA's lawyer went first slick presentation, aerial photos, emotional testimony from a concerned mother about delayed ambulances. Then they called their expert, an engineer who testified that my road was essential infrastructure and that blocking it was unconscionable. Judge Maria Santos listened without expression. Finally, she looked at Patricia. "Counsel for defense?" Patricia stood. "Your Honor, may I present evidence of fraud, conspiracy, and criminal misconduct?" Victoria's face went white. Patricia clicked her laptop. The courtroom screen lit up with emails, bank records, payment receipts, every single crime Victoria had committed, the forged break-in authorization, the staged assault payment receipt, the media smear campaign invoices, the embezzled $400,000. And the final blow, Victoria's own words, "Make him so toxic that even his lawyer quits." The courtroom erupted in gasps. Victoria tried to stand. That's taken out of context. Judge Santos's gavel cracked like thunder. "Sit down." Victoria sank. Then Daniel Ortiz took the stand. Testified about the fraud, the forgeries, the threats. "She told me if I didn't comply, she'd destroy me," he said quietly. "But she was already destroying Mr. Brennan, and I couldn't let that continue." When he finished, Judge Santos looked at Victoria. "Miss Ashford, do you have any response to these allegations?" Victoria's lawyer whispered frantically in her ear. She said nothing. Judge Santos didn't need to deliberate. The HOA's petition is denied with prejudice. Furthermore, I am referring this matter to the Maricopa County Attorney for criminal investigation into fraud, conspiracy, and embezzlement. The gavel fell. Victoria's face crumbled. And for the first time in months, I breathed. 2 days later, Victoria Ashford was arrested at her home, charged with fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy to commit trespass, filing false police reports, witness intimidation, bail set at $250,000. But the story didn't end there. Because here's what nobody tells you about winning. Sometimes victory feels worse than the fight. The morning after Victoria's arrest, I sat on my porch, staring at the desert, waiting for relief that never came. I'd won. The HOA was dissolved. My property was safe. So why did I feel hollow? Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was the cost, financial and emotional, of 8 months fighting people who should have been neighbors. Or maybe it was something darker. The realization that I'd become the thing I'd fought against, someone so focused on winning that I'd stopped seeing the people caught in the crossfire. 3 days after the arrest, I got a letter, postmarked from Maricopa County Jail. Return address, Victoria Ashford, inmate height 4718. I almost threw it away, but something curiosity, maybe guilt, made me open it. Asterisk, Mr. Brennan, you won. I'm writing from a cell where I'll likely spend the next 3 to 5 years. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I need you to understand something. I wasn't always this person. 5 years ago, my husband and I lost everything. His development company went bankrupt. We filed for bankruptcy, lost our house, our savings, our reputation. When we moved to Desert Vista, the HOA presidency was the first time in years I felt like I had control over anything. I told myself I was protecting the community, that I was solving problems, but really, I was just terrified of feeling powerless again. When you refused the easement, I panicked. Because if I couldn't solve that problem, what was I worth? So I kept pushing, kept escalating, kept telling myself the ends justified the means. I was wrong about everything. I'm not asking for sympathy. I'm just asking you to know I'm not a monster. I'm just someone who made terrible choices when I was scared. I'm sorry for what I did to you, and to Daniel, and to everyone I hurt trying to hold on to something that was never mine to control. Victoria, asterisk, I read it 3 times, then I called Patricia. She wrote, "You?" Patricia sounded surprised. "Marcus, that's probably a strategy, trying to reduce sentencing by showing remorse. What if it's not? Silence. What if she's telling the truth?" I continued. What if she really was just desperate? Then she should have asked for help instead of destroying people. I know, but I hesitated. Patricia, I spent 8 months fighting her. I never once asked why she was doing this. Because she was a criminal. She was a person who made criminal choices. I exhaled. There's a difference. Patricia was quiet for a long moment. Marcus, where's this going? I don't know. I can't celebrate someone going to prison, even after what she did to you. Especially after what she did to me, because if I celebrate, doesn't that make me just like her? Hurting people because I have the power to? Another pause. You're a better man than most, Marcus. Or a more confused one. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Victoria's letter. About Daniel's family. About the 20 people who'd stood at my gate because someone lied to them. About how many victims there really were in this mess. And I started wondering, had I gone too far? Yes, Victoria broke the law. Yes, she deserved consequences. But did she deserve to have her entire life destroyed? I'd exposed her crimes, got her arrested, dissolved the HOA she'd built her identity around. Was that justice or revenge? The line felt thinner than I wanted to admit. A week later, I did something I didn't expect. I went to see a therapist, doctor. Lisa Chen, mid-50s, kind eyes, office that smelled like lavender and old books. Marcus, she said after I'd explained everything, do you feel guilty? I don't know. Maybe. Why? Because I won by destroying her. And I keep wondering, did I have to? Could you have stopped her any other way? I thought about it. Legally, probably not. Then you made a choice to protect yourself using the tools available. That's not revenge. That's self-defense. But she's in jail because she committed crimes. You didn't put her there. Her choices did. Then why do I feel like I did? Dr. Chen leaned forward. Because you're a good man with a conscience, you can be right and still feel empathy for the person you had to defeat. Is that normal? It's human. Over the next few months, I started processing everything. The vandalism, the threats, the news smears. The moment I thought I'd lose the land my grandfather died protecting. The fear, the rage, the exhaustion. Dr. Chen called it trauma. I called it the cost of standing your ground. People think property battles are about stubbornness, she said one session. But for you, this was about identity, legacy, keeping a promise to someone you loved. My grandfather, and when Victoria attacked your property, she attacked that promise. So I attacked back. You defended? There's a difference. Is there? She smiled gently. Yes, because you never wanted to hurt her. You wanted her to stop hurting you. That distinction helped, a little, but I still couldn't shake the image of Victoria in that courtroom face crumbling as the judge read the charges. 3 months after the trial, I got another letter, this time from Victoria's daughter, college student, 22 years old. Mr. Brennan, my name is Emma Ashford. I'm Victoria's daughter. I'm not writing to defend my mom. What she did was wrong, illegal, cruel. But I wanted you to know, she wasn't always like this. When I was growing up, she was the mom who organized school fundraisers, who stayed up all night helping me with science projects, who taught me that community matters. Then Dad's business failed. And she changed. She became obsessed with control, with rules, with proving she still mattered. I tried to talk to her, told her the HOA stuff was getting out of hand. She wouldn't listen. After she was arrested, I visited her in jail. She cried for 3 hours, said she didn't recognize herself anymore. I'm not asking you to forgive her. I just wanted you to know there was good in her once, and maybe, someday, there will be again. Thank you for not making this worse than it had to be. Emma, I pinned that letter next to Victoria's on my fridge. Not as trophies, as reminders. That every villain is someone's mother, someone's daughter, someone's broken person who made terrible choices. That didn't excuse what Victoria did, but it made her human. And I needed to remember that. Because the alternative, seeing her as purely evil, would mean I'd lost something important in this fight. My capacity for empathy. 6 months after the trial, the transformation of Desert Vista was complete. The new HOA board, led by a retired schoolteacher named Margaret Silva, actually read the governing documents and discovered half of Victoria's rules were completely fabricated. Turns out, you can park in your own driveway. You can have desert landscaping instead of grass. You don't need approval for flower pot colors. The mandatory community participation fee never existed, Margaret. Knocked on my gate one Saturday with homemade tamales. Mr. Brennan, on behalf of the community, I wanted to apologize. Not your fault. Still, Victoria manipulated all of us. You were just the first one brave enough to say no. Or stubborn enough, she smiled. Sometimes those are the same thing. Over the next year, something unexpected happened. Desert Vista residents started visiting. Not to protest, to ask questions, to learn about the land, to apologize. Mr. and Mrs. Chen brought their grandson to see the saguaros. The Martinez family asked if they could hike the back trail. I said yes. Even Derek Cole, the original community liaison who'd first asked for access, stopped by with a six-pack. I'm sorry, he said. Victoria told me you were unreasonable, that you hated the community, but you just wanted to be left alone. Still do, I said. But I'm learning to tell the difference between neighbors and invaders, he laughed. Fair enough. Not everyone forgave me. Some residents still believed Victoria's version that I was a selfish landowner who'd weaponized the legal system. A few posted on social media, he destroyed a woman's life over a road. That's not justice. I didn't respond, because they weren't entirely wrong. Yes, Victoria broke the law, but I had also chosen to expose everything, to push for maximum charges, to make sure she went to prison. Was that necessary? Or was it overkill? Dr. Chen and I spent months unpacking that question. Marcus, you were fighting for survival, she said. When someone's trying to destroy you, you don't owe them mercy. But I had mercy. I had her dead to rights after the break-in. I could have stopped there, and she would have kept coming. You know that. Maybe, or maybe, I could have negotiated. Found middle ground. With someone who staged an assault, I had no answer. One afternoon, Daniel Ortiz called. He'd moved to Tucson, started a new job, enrolled his kids in better schools. Marcus, I wanted to thank you. For what? For not making me testify more than once. I know Patricia wanted me to do media interviews, but you said no. Your family didn't need that. Exactly. And Victoria's lawyer tried to subpoena me 3 more times. You blocked it. You'd done enough. Silence. Marcus, do you ever regret it? The whole fight? I thought about it. Yeah, sometimes. Even though you won? Especially because I won. Because winning meant someone else lost. And I keep wondering if there was a way where nobody had to lose that badly. She didn't give you that option. I know, but I still wonder. Daniel exhaled. You're a good man, Marcus. Better than she deserved. After we hung up, I stood in the workshop, Samuel's workshop, surrounded by tools older than me. And I heard my grandfather's voice in my head. Boy, standing your ground doesn't mean you become stone. It means you stay rooted while the world tries to move you. I'd stayed rooted. But had I become stone? That question haunted me for months, until one day, A year after the trial, I got a final letter from Victoria. Asterisk, Mr. Brennan, I'm writing from a work release program. I've served 14 months. I'll be out in 8 more. I've spent this time in therapy, mandatory at first, but then necessary. I learned that what I did to you wasn't about the road. It was about me trying to control a world that felt out of control. When my husband's business failed, I felt like I'd failed, like I wasn't enough. The HOA presidency gave me power, and I confused power with worth. When you said no, I didn't see a man protecting his property. I saw someone rejecting me, proving I was worthless. So I tried to destroy you. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm telling you, I get it now. And I'm working to become someone who doesn't need to destroy others to feel valuable. There's a restorative justice program here. Inmates meet with victims. If you're ever willing, I'd like to face you, not to make excuses. Just to say out loud into your face, I was wrong. But if you never want to see me again, I understand. Thank you for not making this worse than it had to be. Victoria asterisk, I showed the letter to Dr. Chen. What do you think? I asked. I think she's done real work. And I think meeting her might give you closure. Or it might reopen wounds. Only one way to find out. 2 months later, I sat in a small meeting room at the Maricopa County Correctional Facility. Beige walls, plastic chairs, a guard outside the door. Victoria entered wearing prison blues, no makeup, hair pulled back, looking 10 years older than in court. She sat across from me. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then she said simply, "Thank you for coming." I nodded. I practiced this 100 times. She continued, "But now that you're here, I don't know what to say." "Start with why," she exhaled. "Why I did it." "Yeah." She looked down at her hands. "Because I was terrified of being nobody, of having no control, of failing again." Her voice cracked. "And when you wouldn't let me fix the road problem, I felt like you were saying I was worthless, so I tried to prove you wrong by doing exactly what proved you right." "You tried to destroy me." "Yes, almost worked." "I know." She looked up, eyes red. "And I'm sorry. Not because I got caught, because I hurt you, and Daniel, and my own community." I studied her face. She looked broken, but not beaten. Broken in the way that means healing might actually be possible. "Victoria, you wrote that you weren't always like this." "I wasn't. So what changed?" She thought about it. "I stopped asking for help, started thinking I had to fix everything alone, and when I couldn't, I broke, and took everyone down with you." "Yes." We sat in silence for a moment. "Mr. Brennan," she said finally, "I don't expect you to forgive me, but I need you to know I'm not that person anymore, and I'll spend the rest of my life proving it." "How?" "I'm training as a mediator, learning conflict resolution, so maybe when I get out, I can help people solve problems instead of creating them." I believed her, not because she deserved belief, but because I'd seen enough brokenness to recognize real change when it started. "Victoria, I came here for one reason." She waited. "To tell you, I'm sorry too." Her eyes widened. "For what?" "For not seeing you as human until it was too late. For treating this like a war instead of a conflict between two scared people who both wanted to protect something. Marcus, you were defending your home. And you were defending your identity. I get that now. Doesn't excuse what you did. But it helps me understand why." She started crying. Not manipulation, just release. "Thank you," she whispered. I stood to leave. Before I reached the door, I turned back. "Victoria, when you get out, don't come to my property. Ever." She nodded. "I won't. But if you need a reference for that mediator job, call my lawyer. She'll vouch for your work here." Victoria's face crumpled. "Why would you do that?" "Because my grandfather taught me. Standing your ground doesn't mean crushing everyone who challenges you. It means knowing when to hold the line and when to offer a hand up. I left before she could respond, because some conversations don't need endings, they just need grace. 2 years after the trial, Desert Vista Estates is thriving. New board, reasonable rules, no matching polo shirts. They built their own emergency access road, longer, more expensive, but theirs. And my gate? Still closed, still locked, still mine. But now, on weekends, I leave it open for a few hours. Let kids from the community hike the back trails. Let families see the saguaros. Not because I have to, because I want to. Because legacy isn't just about defending what's yours. It's about sharing what you've protected so others can appreciate it too. One Saturday, Emma Ashford, Victoria's daughter, knocked on my gate with a man her age. "Mr. Brennan, this is my fiancé, Carlos. I wanted him to meet you." "Why?" She smiled. "Because you're the reason my mom's getting better. She talks about you. About how you could have destroyed her completely, but chose mercy instead." "I didn't." "Yes, you did. You met with her, gave her a reference, helped her get the mediator certification." I shrugged. "She did the work, but you believed she could." Emma's eyes glistened. "Thank you." After they left, I sat on the porch with a beer, watching the sun set over the superstitions. And I thought about Samuel, about his voice. "Boy, you don't just own land, you take care of it, so it'll take care of you." He was right. But he left out one thing. You also take care of the people who share it with you, even the ones who tried to take it away. Because holding the line doesn't mean building walls. It means knowing where you stand and being strong enough to let others stand too. The desert remembers things. It remembers boots, storms, trouble. And it remembers the men who fought not just to win, but to leave the world better than they found it. My land, my rules, my legacy, but also my mercy, my grace, my humanity. Samuel would be proud, not because I won, but because I never forgot what winning was supposed to cost. The end.